I think that they maybe have faith in themselves or faith in the people around them, that that eventually they will be able to find a place for themselves. And I think the women in my books, the characters in my books, I think they're all really smart and grounded and can analyze the situation. I'm probably not as smart as they are in real life, but I think, especially with the Parisian Chapter, Lily, it's an exploration of ambition, love, and friendship, and how relationships or jobs either evolve or dissolve. And so she's quite young, and so I drew a lot on myself about losing friends and what a big heartache that is. But in the book, I could give Lily a happy ending, whereas in real life, sometimes we don't get those happy endings.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, the author podcast, where we get to meet great authors from around the world. And when I mean around the world, Jen, it's a great example of that around the world part. When you can take your stories and travel the world as well and get perspective, that's one thing that Janet loves to do. It shows in her writing, it shows in how she shows up in this world. And I think you're going to love connecting with Janet here on the show. Janet, welcome to Living the Next Chapter. I'm glad to have you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Dave, so much. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Now, you are originally from the U.S., but you are everywhere, which I love. Can you tell us where you are in the moment, like today? Where are you in this big world of ours?
Well, so I live in Paris, France, and I came here 27 years ago, and I only intended to stay a year. I came as a teaching assistant, which is a program that still exists. You can apply to work in a local French school. And they take English speakers, German speakers, Spanish speakers, and they want to help their kids hear from real native speakers. So I did that for a year in Mulhouse, Alsace, France. And then I kept on renewing my contract. And then I met my husband, and that's a long-term contract. So it just goes to show you never know. You never know.
Had you ever traveled like this before, going to France for that first time?
I lived in Odessa, Ukraine for 2 years because I trained I knew that I wanted to be a writer, and I knew it would probably take me a long time to write a book, which is exactly what happened. And I love teaching. I love being in the classroom. I love school. And so I trained to teach English as a foreign language. And so I went to Odessa, Ukraine for 2 years. And then I came to France.
And you travel like you just got back, right, to France. Tell everybody where you were just recently.
I was in Romania with a group of friends for this last week, and really enjoyed myself there. It was a revelation. It was so lush and green and beautiful. The people were amazing bookstores, amazing coffee shops. It was really a great place to go.
What do you learn about the world when you travel to all these different countries? When we're in the US or I'm in Canada, we know where we live, we know our community really well because we were born and raised here. But the moment you go to a totally different country, a different language, different culture, like what kind of lessons are you learning that you bring home with you when you travel like this?
I think it's really interesting. We were talking about this before the show started, just about the different perspective you have. It just opens your eyes to the fact that there's more than one way of doing things. I personally got a special tour of Romania because I ended up in the ER. And so it was really interesting to see that the hospital was a public service and not a money-making business. Mm-hmm. And it was just a reminder of the importance of healthcare for all, which I think sometimes we forget in the States, which is a real pity.
Yeah, well, we have that here in Canada. And so that makes us a little bit different than our American brothers and sisters, because that's kind of how Canada does healthcare. But that's interesting too, though. Just the fact that you get to meet people from with different languages, again, different cultures, how they show up. I wasn't anticipating your response to how life is in Romania. In that you said that people seem to be more kind of more relaxed and more comfortable, and things seem to be a little bit like things are going really well in that country. Can you expand a little bit on what you saw?
Yes, so I think growing up, I remembered photos of just kind of the former Soviet Union, and I knew that Romania was now part of the European Union, and I was going there at the end of August, so I was expecting things to be maybe golden colored, like the sunflowers on your mantle,
Yeah.
but it was super green and lush, and we found out that it rained day and night in July, which is why it was so green and lush at the end of August. But it was just, I guess, a reminder that everything you think about a place, it might not be what you expect. It might not be what you expect. And when I was in the ER, I was treated by a nurse who had spent 7 years in Chicago.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it just was a reminder that we are all connected, and we can always find a way to meet. We can always find a way to be together and become friends and find common ground.
All the way there, and to find somebody who knows where Chicago is and has been there. That's amazing. The world is so small, right?
Yes, yes,
I love that.
absolutely.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk to the authors that are listening. For you, with a global perspective, traveling and seeing different places, how does that impact you as an author as you write? Does that become a source of strength and a resource for you as an author, knowing that you've been in different places? And does that filter its way into your writing?
I'm originally from small town Montana. Shelby,
Yeah.
Montana, I think had about 2,000 people when I was growing up, and I knew that I wanted to be a writer. And I was a reader. I went to the library all the time, my school libraries, the public libraries. And so I think nothing would have stopped me from being a writer. And I think we have some really beautiful writers who talk about their hometowns and their rich inner lives. So I don't think you have to travel. A lot of to be a writer, a lot of my work is historical fiction. So I can't travel back to the
Yeah.
1920s, or I can't travel back to World War II, but I can do a lot of research. And so I would tell writers out there, you don't have to invest a lot of money. You don't have to you don't have to travel the world. You just have to be observant, because I think people are people, and the people who are around you, I think you'll find the same ups and downs in your hometown that you will in other places in the world. But that said, I'm always kind of a fish out of water, and I'm always uncomfortable, and I'm always speaking a foreign language, and I'm always struggling to make myself understood. So that's the theme that unifies all of my books. My first book was about an email order bride who traveled from Odessa, Ukraine to the United States, hoping for love and a green card. And it was really challenging for her. My next book was about a war bride who traveled to Montana. And so she went from cosmopolitan Paris to small town Montana and really, really struggled as well. My next book was about a New Yorker who traveled to a war zone in World War One. And then my follow-up book, The Parisian Chapter, is about a young woman who transitions from college life into her first job, into her first serious relationship, where again, feels very, um, she just feels very out of place and feels like she's not doing enough. So I think that's the theme of my work, just uh, being a fish out of water. But I think we sometimes in our own families we can be a fish out of water.
Yeah.
So again, I think you just have to be observant and really think about things. I sit and stare at the wall an awful lot. You don't have to live in a big city, or you can. It doesn't matter where I stare at that wall, actually. You just have to give yourself that time and concentration.
Do you think it's harder for someone who, like me, is a little more introverted to be put and transported into a different culture, in a different place, and then try to navigate life in a foreign land? Like, for me, I get a little nervous just hearing the idea that I have to explain myself and I have to get out there and meet people, and my brain starts to go, no. Is it hard to connect with people if maybe you're not very extroverted at all?
I think it is. I think it can be challenging. I'm definitely better one-on-one. It's very hard for me to connect in group situations. But I think it's all doable. I think it's
Yeah.
absolutely doable.
Your characters in your books all seem to be in different foreign places in the stories. Do your characters have a hard time connecting with their new surroundings in each of your books?
They absolutely do, and for different reasons. I think the war bride, she goes to town Montana, and
Yeah.
she's viewed as having stolen someone's high school sweetheart. He went off to war in France, and so when that young man married a French woman and brought her home, the whole town thought that she had stolen this young man from his rightful fiance, who was back home and waiting, but there had never been an engagement. So she really struggled with her in-laws. She really struggled with the townspeople. With Lily in the Parisian chapter, I think it's the first time in her life that she's seen such a strict hierarchy of who matters and who doesn't. It's in the workplace, and so she just has to try to be professional and make sense of that hierarchy. And it's always hard when you realize that sometimes you're judged on how much money you have, or how old you are, or what people perceive you can do for them. And so she has a really hard time navigating that.
Yeah, I grew up in high school in a super small town, northern Ontario, Canada, like less than 500 people in the town. So everybody knew everybody. So bringing in somebody from France into that environment, you stand out. Language, culture, food, everything is different, right? And you don't blend in that moment because everybody knows that you're not from here, right? So you have to kind of almost win people over in that
Yes.
environment, right?
Yes, and that's really hard to do if people are hostile. It's
Yeah.
very challenging.
Yeah, because you're seen as an outsider by the town. Who are you? And kind of, what are you going to come in here and change things? Are we going to have a French bistro now because you're here, right? Like, all these things are now, everyone's a little bit kind of, they don't know what to do with you because you're different than everyone else. And there's no history as well as you come into this community. You don't have any historical ties apart from your fiance. You don't have any ties to this community. So it takes a little while for people to accept you, I think, in that environment.
Yes, I think it's very challenging. I think it's very challenging. And I think you see that with different relationships that are maybe one person is French and one person is American or Canadian. It's always challenging because you, even with the best intentions, there's culture shock or cultural misunderstandings. But that makes life very rich because then you have to think about things a bit more. But I think even in relationships where you're from the same place and speak the
Yeah,
same language, I think there are still those same misunderstandings, because we all have our own ideas about things or how things should be done.
right. And we can say two families from the same community and their kids marry each other. But you're foreign to that other family now. You have to get into their culture and how they do things in their family. You live in the same town. You've known each other your whole life. But the idea of joining some other family group or community is always unnerving. I think all of us have that in common with your characters. So that's interesting that you write about that. I like that. I'm anticipating that there's a little kernel or seed of you in your characters, being that you travel so much and you've seen so many things. You have been thrown into different situations where you're the outsider, quote unquote, in that community. Are there little elements of you sprinkled through your characters in your books?
Oh, absolutely. But I think those elements are not where you would expect them to be. For example, in the Paris Library, you might expect me to be Lily, who is the young girl who looks up to the French war bride. But in fact, my experiences would be more in line with the war bride, struggling to fit into a new country and dealing with all of the ups and downs of culture shock and trying to remake my life. A lot of people, when they move to a new place, their diploma isn't recognized. So then you kind of have to make that choice. Do I go back to school and get the same diploma, or do I pivot and do a different job? So I think when you move to a different place, it brings up a lot of questions that that only you can kind of figure out.
What is some common characteristics in your characters of a strength that help them to adjust to their new surroundings?
I think that they maybe have faith in themselves or faith in the people around them, that eventually they will be able to find a place for themselves. And I think the women in my books, the characters in my books, I think they're all really smart and grounded and can analyze the situation. I'm probably not as smart as they are in real life, but I think, especially with the Parisian Chapter, Lily, it's an exploration of ambition, love, and friendship, and how relationships or jobs either evolve or dissolve. And so she's quite young, and so I drew a lot on myself about losing friends and what a big heartache that is. But in the book, I could give Lily a happy ending, whereas in real life, sometimes we don't get those happy endings.
Where would Lily take us if we met her, and it'd be somewhere that she would be pretty proud to take us and show us something? A location, a part of her story, something memorable. Is there somewhere that she would take us as a first time kind of interaction with her? She's like, oh, you got to come with me and you got to see this. Where would she take us?
I think she would take us to a bookstore. I think she would take us to the Red Wheelbarrow bookstore, which is right across from the Luxembourg Garden. And it is owned by Penelope Fletcher, who is a lovely bookseller. She's originally from Hornsby Island, BC, has lived here, I think, for at least 30 years. And I think Lily goes there in the book. It's a place that she seeks solace, and it's where she meets her favorite author by chance. So I think Lily would definitely take readers to the Red Wheelbarrow.
Interesting. Okay, so we'll have to have a link for that for everyone to go check out as well. I'm anticipating you have been there as well.
It's actually my favorite place too.
Come on.
So yes, it's my favorite place too. Yes.
How does somebody go from British Columbia to where you are? Do you have any idea her story as well?
She was a bookseller in Canada, and then she came here, and I think that she was, like a lot of us, taught English for a while. And I think she really loves bookselling. I think she loves writing. And so she married a Frenchman. They later divorced, but they had 3 children together. So that's part of her story. But she's an amazing bookseller. She's a lover of literature, and her bookstore, the Red Wheelbarrow, is, I think, the happy place of so many authors and readers here.
Is that the photo on your website with a whole bookshelf taller than you?
Yes,
really?
That's Penelope's bookstore, yes.
I'm like looking at the shelves way above you in the photo going, I want that one, please, sir. It's like,
well, and she has the ladder, a bamboo ladder. She has a ladder? She'll get it for you. She'll definitely get it for you. No, it's an amazing bookstore.
It's amazing.
I had to put it in the book.
How did you come across that bookstore originally?
I was probably homesick and really needing maybe a connection in English because when I got here in 98, 99, uh, everything was in French. Now you can find Netflix and other things that will be in VO, in the version originale, the original
Mm,
version. But back then, everything was dubbed. Um, I was a teaching assistant, which was a yearly post, and so my coworkers, my French coworkers, just expected me to move on, and the following year there would be someone to take my place. So it wasn't a job where there were any connections because they just thought, oh, she's moving through, why bother?
yeah,
Which, as someone who's considered a lifer, I would be the same way too. You don't want to invest in friendships. It's
right.
heartbreaking. Paris is a trampoline town. People bounce in and out. So people are here for a year on sabbatical, or they're here for a junior year abroad, or they're here because their company transferred them for a year or two, and then they move on. So I went surely seeking a connection, not just with books, but with people.
A trampoline town. I like that. I don't know if I've ever heard that before, but that makes a lot of sense. That's interesting that they anticipated for you to move on as well, and you kind of push back against that trend by staying long term and being that lifer. That's
I
very interesting.
did, but I was rarely in the same school. So
Oh, they moved you around.
I did
Okay.
move. They were correct in that I did move. I even if I applied and the school asked if I could stay, the system put me in different schools.
Oh, I see. So you're still moving around anyway. Okay. All right. All right. So for the reader, then, I always like to kind of get this perspective for the readers when they connect with you in the book. They kind of have anticipating what they're going to get from reading your books. If you could kind of summarize, because you have many different things you've written about, but for the reader's sake, your love letter to a reader, how you would first introduce your books to a reader. What's your overall message to the reader then, so that we can kind of bring them into what you're writing?
I think that we're all fish out of water and we all are looking to belong. And I think that's the main theme of my work is really um, people who just don't feel at home and how they create those connections or how they are able to build a new life for themselves. And I think it is possible, whether I think whether you're moving to a foreign country or graduating from high school or college, getting married or divorced, sending those kids off to college, there are so many times in our lives where we feel like we're starting over or there's a huge change that we don't know how to deal with. And so I think, even though my books take place during war, even though they're about email order brides or war brides, I think what unites the books are really that theme of finding our place in the world. And in the Parisian Chapter, which is an audiobook with I think 11 voices,
Wow.
including the actress Pauline Chalamet, who starred in an HBO series recently. Um, it's it's about Lily, and she's a young woman whose career is not going. She wants to be a writer, and it's not going well. She's just getting rejections. Her best friend has also left, and Lily doesn't understand what Lily has contributed to that situation. And her romantic life is not going well despite going on some dates in France. So she's kind of hitting rock bottom, like a lot of us do in our 20s, and even in our 40s, where we're kind of evaluating things and we might have to pivot or make some tough choices or really look at ourselves and see what we're contributing to the situation and if we're making things harder than they need to be. And so that's where we are in the Parisian chapter.
Is the only Parisian chapter the only one that's an audiobook at this point?
So it's an audiobook. They're all audiobooks,
Okay.
but this is an audio original, and then the trade paperback original comes out in the spring of 2026.
How do you navigate having so many voices do the audiobook? Is that something that you hire a team to do that for you, or like what kind of say do you have as an author on how your voices are represented in that book?
Well, Simon Audio they found a list of people to be the voices. And for
Okay.
example, Pauline Chalamet is fluent in French because I think one of her parents is French. And so for some of the parts there's just a little French, so it's really nice that she knew all the words or inflection.
Nice.
For the others, there were they just did an amazing job with the casting. They sent me just small videos so I could listen to the actors, but I'm really glad I didn't have to decide. I
Okay.
just thought they were all fabulous in their own way. For one actor brought a great deal of gravitas, another one was world weary, and that is exactly how I saw one of the characters, just this world weary but gravitas. So
Mm.
it's really gratifying to hear your words come to life. And Audiophile just gave a really lovely review and a shout out to an actor named Matt Godfrey, who did a wonderful job in the role of Tolstoy, who was a vet who was seeking solace at the library. So it's really nice to see the actors get the kudos they deserve for bringing these characters to life.
Do you see audiobooks as something that is going to continue to grow in popularity from a consumer's point of view? Because for me, I love audiobooks, so I'm all in on these. But
I
how do you
love
see that?
I love audiobooks, and I guess they at least in the States, they sell the most currently. And I think that makes sense, when you think about how many people commute and need something, are seeking engaging podcasts and books to listen to when you've got an hour commute. I know I listen to audiobooks when I'm cleaning, and it actually makes me clean longer
Oh,
because I don't want to, if I'm in the middle of the chapter and I'm done, I'll be like, well, I'll just do a little more so I can finish the chapter. So my house is actually tidier. My apartment is tidier than it would be thanks to the talented audio
interesting.
actors. Yeah.
Okay. It's meaningful to have your words translated into audio, but what else? What is really something that really stuck out to you when you hear people voice your words? Like, what else are you feeling as an author in that moment? Because I'm just super curious as a reader and as an audio listener for audiobooks, your response, like when you get these clips, like how are you feeling inside when you hear these voices bring your characters to life?
For the Parisian chapter, I listened to a few chapters more than once just because I just enjoyed how it wasn't how I wrote the character,
Okay.
but it was even better. They just brought them to life in a different way that I just thought was so unique and beautiful. So it's very exciting to hear how people can interpret your words or situation and just do an incredible job.
Have you done your own audiobook before as an author?
I I did the author's note of one of my books. I think it was
Okay.
8 pages, and it was really hard. It was really hard because your throat dries out, and I met with one of the narrators when she came through Paris. I was drinking cafe au lait. She was drinking sliced ginger in water with lemon. And so they even have to, even
Yeah.
those small pleasures, they kind of have to really pay attention to their throat and their voice. So you really see how dedicated they are to making sure your words sound beautiful. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I could give up cafe au lait.
Right. Any interactions with the voice actors at all from you as an author directly with them?
I just met one
Yeah.
for coffee when she was here, and then
Okay.
another when that review came in. I just gave a shout out because they did such a
Nice.
beautiful job.
Excellent. Yeah. I just think that's really unique. And to have that many voices on your book, I've heard some voice actors do all the voices from one person. And I don't know how they do that. that's how to come up with creative voices for different characters from one person.
Yeah, exactly. It is incredible. And just the range, doing both
Yeah.
men and
Yeah.
women and all ages. It's very impressive. It's very, very impressive.
When you go to write something new in the future, are you writing with in your mind that this will be an audiobook then?
So I'm working on a really creepy book now, and I really hope it will be audio.
Okay.
And I really love the process of working with audio, and I really would love to work with the same team again. And so I think if I were maybe writing it just for a novel on paper, I would stick to one narrator, but I think I'll have three narrators, and just to really drive home the different voices. So it is something within the book world, you never know. There were 10 years between my first book when it was acquired, in more than 10 years, in 2008, and then my next book was acquired in 2019. I had to start over with a new agent and a new publisher because they didn't want my next book, and it took that long to find someone who did.
Okay.
So I say that because you can have the best intentions, but things never quite turn out the way you expect. And at least for me in the publishing world, you just never know.
Some of the more common conversations I have with guests on this show is they're thinking of their book in terms of a movie or a television series or something. So they're thinking from a visual perspective when they write their book, how it's going to play out on screen. You're going from an audio perspective. So do you think writing with an audio perspective in mind changes how you write your book and compared to just writing a paperback book, going to go right into a bookshop, never be translated into audio? Do you write differently as an author?
Well, I think there were different things that they changed in the book. For example, the boss, Lily's boss in the Parisian chapter, wrote things in all caps when he was unhappy, and in the book form you'll just see they're written in caps, but in the audio you have the actor has to underline, and it was in all caps. So there are small things like that. Or the actor Matt Godfrey, who was Tolstoy, in the original text, it said, my sergeant made fun of me for writing in a journal. He called it a little girl writing in his diary. And so he changed that inflection. He used the actual inflection.
Wow.
And so they didn't have to say some of the words because his inflection was so strong. You could feel it. So it is interesting how things can change. And I know I read Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress and watched the movie, and it was really interesting because a lot of when a book takes place in a character's head, somehow the screenwriter has to transpose that into action. So I love reading books and then watching the movie to see how they get out of the character's head and into action. So it's always exciting to see that. One
of the things I've been doing recently is buying the paper copy of the book because I love supporting our authors, but then also downloading and listening to the audiobook. So it's like you're getting read the book that's in your hand. So you have kind of more senses being involved. And then you also see when things navigate a little differently from the written word to the audio. And one of the authors out of my show, he's a screenwriter. He said, do that to movies. Go get the actual, the entire script for the movie and then watch the movie with the script. And you'll see how things diverge away from what they were saying and what's happening in the screen. He's like, it's very interesting because that's going to be a lesson you can bring to your writing and you understand how things are made from that perspective. So I kind of like that dual senses being engaged when we're listening to and seeing the words on our page at the same time.
Yes, I think that's right. I would love to. I got Tom Lake the book, and then I realized it was Meryl Streep narrating, and I thought that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get the audiobook and then just sit and enjoy both at the same time.
Right. Yeah, it's a very interesting perspective. And I think, again, I get more out of it using more of my senses than just the audio or just the paper. I get the combination of the two. I get more out of it, and I see and hear more than I might have missed. Yes, because my mind is thinking about something while I'm reading, and then I start to drift off a little bit, come back to the story. I just miss something, like driving down the road and cluing out for a couple seconds and go, I just missed all kinds of stuff. I'm not paying attention, right?
Yeah.
I like the two senses being involved. I like that a lot.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. So you hinted to a new project you're working on. My podcast is Living the Next Chapter. So I kind of like to ask the question for you as an author, Janet, where are you heading as an author? What can we expect from you down the road as you live your next chapter? Can you give us a little bit more about the projects you're working on?
Well, I'm envisioning two different projects, and one is kind of taking over, and it's just kind of a creepy book, which is not a really great explanation, but it's just something I've been thinking about, how I've got a lot of friends who are going through divorce, and it's each divorce is kind of ugly in its own way and really challenging for everyone involved, but some are more challenging than others. And so I'm looking at that. And then I'm also looking at a different subject. And I don't know, I'm talking about this to you, but you just don't know if projects will see the light of day. So
Right.
this is
Yeah.
like my optimistic. And then
Good.
I'm also looking at study abroad, and just going back to the original topic of our conversation, how that opens minds, how it opens hearts, how it makes us rethink what we know. And so I've been thinking about doing a novel with a study abroad at its core. So those
Okay.
are kind of the two things that I try to work on two things at a time.
Oh,
Because if I have because you just get stuck,
yeah.
and when you get stuck and you stop writing, it's hard to start again.
Yeah.
And so when you get stuck and you need space and time from a project, it's nice to kind of fiddle with another project. And
That's interesting
and I'm
perspective. I think
I
that's
yeah,
great.
well, and I'm a slow writer. It takes me super long time. So it takes me a super long time. So I think it's better to just kind of not take those breaks, because it's for me, once I stop doing something, it can take me forever to start doing it again. And that's it. Just getting back into the routine is hard for me.
Great. Janet, take us to your website where we can see photos of this amazing bookshop. And I see there's a lot of things on here where we can follow along and see what you're working on and all this great information. You have a newsletter as well through your website. But take us to your website, and I have a question to kind of wrap up our time together today. But yeah, take us to your site.
So my site is jskeslincharles.com, and I have my books there. I have I have my newsletter, which I really love writing. My last newsletter was about how dry farming in rural Montana and writing novels is basically the same profession. Because we both hope to have harvests. We both do our best, but despite doing our best, the elements sometimes decide, whether it's a drought where there's no rain for my dad, who's a retired farmer, or whether it's a drought in terms of getting a publishing contract like I did for 10 years. So anyway, so I write a little bit about life, my life, but also the life of my real life characters, and share some photos. So yes, the jskeslincharles.com.
If there's someone listening to this, Janet, and they want to do a similar path that you've taken, and they want to go and teach abroad, they want to go to another country and kind of follow in your footsteps, they have no idea where to start. What would have been helpful for you to hear in a conversation on a podcast before you went to France for the first time? A couple things that would be really, really helpful for somebody who wants to do a similar journey that you've done. What would be helpful for them to hear?
I think a lot of people that I meet here move to France. They give up everything. They sell their house. They tell everyone sayonara forever. And then they come here, and then it's really hard. It's not what people expect. It's, there's culture shock, there's some frustration, there's learning a whole new system. And so I would just say, Don't think of it as forever. Think of it as just year to year or month to month. And don't be so hard on yourself, and give yourself grace. Because I think when you kind of make that when you make that move for good, it's somehow harder than if you just say, it's just for a little while and we'll see how it plays out.
And if you find yourself transplanted in a new situation, in a new environment, whether you're coming from France to a small town in Montana, or you're in Romania in an emergency room, just remember that there's some books here and an author that's been writing about this. And if you're feeling this kind of loneliness, maybe disconnected from your community, a little lost, Janet's got many books for you that'll keep you company over a cup of tea or a nice cup of coffee in your local cafe. You can find a friend here with Janet's writings, and they'll keep you company on those days when you're just not feeling like you belong. So, Janet, thank you for writing and sharing your stories in the way that you do, and being a great example to us as readers that, again, if we find ourselves just a little bit disconnected, we can find connection through your books. It's great, Janet. Thank you for being part of the show.
Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Excellent, everyone. All information for Janet, as always, in the show notes. You got to go check out the bookstore. That's the biggest bookshelf I've ever seen. I have a little bit of bookshelf envy behind me, seeing this photo on Janet's website. Everyone go check it out. Leave Janet some reviews as well. When you buy Janet's books. I know she'd love to hear from you and how you connected with the story and the characters. It would be really beneficial for Janet to hear your thoughts. So as you're listening to or reading her books, that you leave her some comments. I know she'd love to hear from you. And go sign up for a newsletter and experience what Janet's writing outside of the covers of her books. And again, Janet, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much again for pressing play. As you've heard, great guests on the show. And one thing you didn't hear in this conversation is what? What did you not hear? Think about it for a second. That's right. Not a single solitary commercial for a mattress or a supplement or a whatever you call it. No. Why? Because we don't want to break up the conversation with commercials. So the fact that you're still here means that you are a fan of the show, I'm assuming. So if you want to help to keep the podcast going and to make me feel really happy, all I really care about is coffee, okay? I just got to be honest. I love coffee. I'm drinking one right now. It's starting to get cold. I need to warm it up. Helping us with our Buy Me a Coffee link over at livingthenextchapter.com and also in the show notes helps kind of keep the lights on around here. Remember, I'm doing this for free. I'm paying for everything. So I would love to have a little coffee donation, even $5 kind of fills up my cup. And I would love to enjoy a coffee from you. So if you're interested, again, thank you for listening. But you can use our Buy Me a Coffee link and fill up the cup. Thanks for being here.